We've all witnessed the fall of the Marvel Cinematic Universe over the last several years, and of course it led to nicknames like the MCU, as Marvel decided to continue to focus on characters that A, people either didn't really care about as much, or B, that failed in the comics over and over and over again, yet they still pushed them in front of a bunch of different, more deserving characters in order to push the Marvel Cinematic Universe to a different place. This didn't happen by accident. It was all part of Kevin Feige's plan. All the way back in 2018 is when Kevin Feige started talking about this. Marvel boss wants more female than male heroes in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is from June 26th, 2018. We're talking about 7 years ago, almost to the date, where Kevin Feige went out there and said, hey, we are going to make it the MCU. And I'm sure they thought at these heights, with all the money that they were making on these movies, that they could just slap any characters on there, put a Marvel logo on, and it would work. Well, as it turns out, it did not work. So 2 years ago, when we started hearing things about the behind-the-scenes stuff for Fantastic Four and how this movie was being developed, it certainly wasn't a surprise when a report came out that said Sue Storm is actually set to be the leader of this movie, that Sue Storm would be front and center. She would replace Reed Richards as the leader of this team. And certainly Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman, in her own right, an awesome character, part of the team, an important part of the team. Without any part of this Fantastic Four team, the team does fall apart. And throughout the decades and decades worth of comics, there's been a handful of runs where she certainly has been at the forefront for things like that. But we all know that Reed Richards is the leader of the Fantastic Four. Mr. Fantastic, in fact. Well, now, just a month and a half before the release of this movie, we now have that confirmation of everything we suspected the entire time, the things that had been rumored, the things that had been reported, based on the marketing for this movie, based on the trailers. It is all about Sue Storm. Sue Storm is the leader of the team in the Fantastic Four First Steps. If you go back through the comics, you realize that Sue Storm is arguably the leader of the Fantastic Four, because without Sue Storm, everything falls apart, says executive producer Grant Curtis. This stuff seems so weird to me because Sue Storm, Invisible Woman, is a powerful character. She's an awesome character. She survived for decades and decades and decades in the comic books for that reason, has a lot of fans for that reason. But it's almost like you're saying, you know, we've got this character, but she's not enough. She's not good enough. She has to be, we have to push her up. We have to make her the leader because she's not good enough on her own with just the character that she is. If that is your reasoning, that, you know, without this character, it just wouldn't really work, you could say that about any of them. You could say that about a lot of different characters. It doesn't make them the leader of their respective teams. It just doesn't, right? If Ben Grimm, if the Thing, if he decides to like fuck off and get out of there, do you know that does destroy the team as well? That it doesn't work? That everything falls apart without him? Does that make him the leader of the team? No. It does not. Nevertheless, that's where we are. We're getting the Sue Storm we deserve. And this is in an article from Collider. And predictably, one thing we constantly see with these heroic teams that have survived for decades and decades, half a century plus in some cases, you always see the people that are involved in making them, the actors that are playing them, they tend to disrespect what came before and kind of laugh at how stupid this was and dumb this is. And, oh, we can't do that. This is a modern movie. How dare we portray Sue Storm as the traditional feminine version? Oh, it has to be something better. It has to be something different. The last live-action version of Sue Storm wasn't exactly a win for women. This isn't the fault of the actor who played her, Jessica Alba, but more a byproduct of more male-gazing era of filmmaking. The Sue Storm we'll see in First Steps is promised to be much more multifaceted. There's the quote about her being the center of the four, the leader of the Fantastic Four. While not naming the past films directly, Curtis does recognize the need for better characterization for women in these films. We had the desire to date aesthetically, but in terms of character and treatment, who should be front and center? It's like, hey, let's tell the best story possible. So that's in reference to the 60s time period that they wanted to do a period piece. Now, it's great if you want. I think it's awesome to do a Fantastic Four set in the 60s because you have so many great runs to pull directly from. But they didn't want to do that. They wanted the aesthetic, but they didn't want the stories. So they switched things up a little bit. Sue Storm herself, Kirby, spoke to Collider about balancing Sue Storm as a member of this family, as a wife, sister, friend, and mother, as well as being a strong force on her own. She acknowledges the earlier comics were very much a product of their time, remembering laughing with Pedro when seeing an early comic that shows Reed placating Sue's complaining by buying her a new dress. When it comes to playing a mother, it's all about making it practical and understanding the real-world expectations. Now, I do think she goes out of her way to be like, well, we didn't want her to be just a badass girl boss, but we also didn't want her to just be a traditional female character like this. We needed to make her better. And so now you have Sue Storm. Like was reported 2 years ago, Sue Storm is the leader. She's front and center. And if you've read some of the leaks about this, you understand how the film may end. And it is back to MCU. It's hard to understand how a company that has acknowledged faults and flaws and problems and need to go a different direction, continuing to make the same mistakes over and over and over again. But this is what they do. This is what Kevin Feige said. There was an agenda to push this. It wasn't just happenstance that more female characters started coming out there. No. Now, Sue Storm is not a character like, I don't know, like America Chavez or Ironheart or one of these characters that was created recently that got pushed to the top. Obviously, Sue Storm, the Invisible Woman, a very powerful and very important character on her own. You don't need to make her the leader of the team. Yet here we are. Pedro Pascal, to his credit, says he loves being led by powerful women, both in the real world and on screen. So he's all down with it. He's good with it, which I suppose isn't really shocking. But the reports, the rumors, apparently they were right. What do you guys think about this? Sue Storm is the leader of the Fantastic Four for Marvel. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Smash a like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, share this video out there, and I'll talk to you later.